Welcome to this People and Purpose video. It is my absolute pleasure to introduce today Henry Stewart, the Chief Executive of Happy, the learning and development company, which is multi-award winning in its own right. And Henry is also the author of the Happy Manifesto, which was one of the books shortlisted for the Management Book of the Year through the Chartered Management Institute and the British Library. So welcome, Henry.
Thank you.
So Henry, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, your work, and Happy as the organisation? What is it that you do?
What we do is we help organisations create happy workplaces. That's about it, really.
Tell us a bit more about the Happy difference.
Okay. We start from a basic principle, which is that we believe that people work best when they feel good about themselves. Now, would you agree with that? Most people, basically everybody I talk to agrees that that's true.
Absolutely.
The next question then is, what then should be the main purpose of management? Well, if you actually believe the first one, then the natural next step is that the main purpose of management should be about making people feel good. Now, I then will ask people, okay, hands up, who works for an organisation where that is the main purpose of management? And I generally get about 1 or 2 in 100 putting their hands up to that one. Young people say, oh, well, yeah, it's a purpose, but not the main purpose. But let me give you the example that, I was recently asked that question while I was on the panel with the chair of one of Britain's biggest retail organisations, 90,000 people. And he put his hand up and said, yeah, in my company, that is the main focus of management. You can probably guess which company it was. It was, in fact, John Lewis, probably the most respected business in the UK. And he explained how at the last board meeting, they spent 30 minutes discussing the numbers and 3 hours discussing people and how to motivate them and how to support them. Because when Speed and Lewis set up John Lewis as a worker-owned company in the 1930s, he made the core of the constitution that every decision had to be based on the increasing happiness for its staff. And that's on that core, on that basis, that they've built this hugely successful company. And so I ask people, what could it do for your company if it's done that for John Lewis?
Yeah. And I think John Lewis is such an interesting example because it absolutely bears out that kind of dual outcome then, that it has very engaged employees who love working there, who are real sort of brand ambassadors, if you want to put it that way, but also a company that's financially successful and that is successful in the eyes of its customers. So.
Absolutely, because if I ever ask people, okay, we do customer service training. If I ask people, okay, who gives great customer service? John Lewis is always one of those that people come up with.
Indeed,
people love going there.
Yeah. So, what would it look like in practice for an organisation to put the happiness of its employees first, or to have as its core purpose making people feel good about themselves?
Well, let's be clear about this because people might think, it's trivial stuff. I do have one of our clients, one of our contacts, tasked somebody to make their people happy, and he went away and bought hula hoops and games, and they had lots of fun, and he measured happiness before and afterwards, and happiness went down because actually it's not about the trivial stuff; it's about much deeper stuff than that. And that, well, I tend to say managers making people feel good is actually phrase it that way rather than simply making people happy. But what they then did was they looked at, okay, how they made sure people were doing what they're good at, gave them purpose. Did they have purpose and meaning in their work? As a result, some people left the company, some people changed jobs, but they're now focusing on those things and on giving them autonomy on the way to be as happy as Denmark, which is their target.
That's a really well put target, actually. I've not come across an organisation saying I want to be as happy as Denmark, but I can see the point. Now, purpose was one of the areas that we're particularly interested in here. So, can you articulate how an organisation might make it easier for its people to understand their purpose or feel that they have purpose in the organisation?
Well, there's different elements to this. First of all, there's the purpose of the organisation, but
Mm-hmm.
actually for most people, it's much more individual. One key question is, are you doing something that you're good at?
Right.
It's very hard to have purpose when you're doing something that isn't one of your skills. Gallup has asked over 1 million people, Gallup has asked over 1 million people, do you get to do what you're best at every day? Now, guess what percentage say yes to that? Now, most people answer 10, 20%, this kind of thing, which is really depressing.
Yeah.
It is really depressing that nobody out there thinks everyone is doing what they're great at. And they're right, they're not. According to Gallup, it's 1 in 6, 17% are doing what they're best at every day. Think how organisations could be transformed if we simply got people to do stuff they were good at.
Yeah.
And once they're doing stuff they're good at, it's much easier to build in that purpose. But the next step is to build in trust and autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
So the other question I like to ask is, think about a time when you worked at your absolute best in terms of the results that you produced. Think back over your career, might have been a particular project, a particular company, something like that. And I'm willing to bet, well, most people, it isn't, for instance, when they're well paid. It isn't particularly when communication was strong. It isn't even particularly when they had a particularly good manager. What it always is when they were challenged and when they were given the trust and freedom to do it the way they want to. And that is crucial to building both happiness and to building purpose. That you do what you're good at and you give them the freedom to do it well.
Yeah. And those two things then build off of each other, don't they? We're much more able to make the right decisions and do well and take advantage of the autonomy when we're working to our talents, our strengths, our skills, and vice versa. We're much more interested in making our own decisions and taking autonomy when we have the opportunity to work at our best. So those two things really build off of each other, don't they?
Absolutely. And the next question is, okay, I'm a manager. How do I do this? Well, let me give you one simple tip, simple method. If you're a manager, you probably task people or groups of people to go away and come up with a solution or a new idea or some project proposal and bring it back for approval. Okay, let's drop the last step, the approval. What I propose is something called pre-approval, which is where you effectively approve the solution before they've thought of it. I.e., you set down very clearly what the guidelines are, what's expected, but leave the person or the people to come up with their own solution. We run a training business. One of our trainers sent me an email a while back saying, I love the 3 things you've done to improve how we work here and how easy it is to meet the needs of our customers. And I looked at those 3 things and, oh, that's interesting. I didn't even know they'd happened. They hadn't come across my desk for approval. But then I noticed a second thing, that if they had come across my desk for approval, I'd have rejected 2 of them.
Wow, okay.
Because I thought most of the techniques and methods are happy. I set the business up. I use my best thinking, and I think my thinking is pretty good. I'm a natural barrier to change, like most managers, especially senior managers. And if it comes across your desk, you've got to improve it. I'm sure most people have had experience of putting their best ideas up to their manager and had him or her improve it. The idea. It's not always a great experience. But, so how do you stop that? Because you've got to do something with it. If it comes across your desk, you stop it by making sure it doesn't come across your desk.
Right.
Yeah. So a bigger example is our website. Our website is pretty important to us, as it is, I'm sure, to all of you. We don't have salespeople, we don't have advertising. People find us either by word of mouth or through the website. So I'd always been very involved in that website because I know a lot about the internet and marketing and stuff like that. So I would helpfully suggest lots of ideas. Do this, do that, change that. No, not that. As a result, the person in charge of the website never really felt completely in charge of the website. So we're going to create a new website. We believe in pre-approval. We said, okay, we will pre-approve Johnny, who we put in charge, to create the website. Now, that doesn't mean we said to Johnny, create whatever you feel like, because we have, a particular brand, particular look and feel. In fact, we did a branding exercise which defined the look and feel of the organisation. Obviously, the website had to fit within that. We sent Johnny on the best search engine optimization training, and we agreed what it would be measured by. It would be measured by the number of visitors and the amount of income it generated. And we also, a requirement was Johnny did usability testing, that he talked to users. Our opinion didn't matter, the users' opinion didn't matter. So I saw the website the night before it launched, when it was too late to do anything about it. And it wasn't quite what I expected. And I thought, I wouldn't have done that. And why is that there? And I'm not sure about this. Because if you truly delegate, you do not get what you would have produced. You get what they produce. But it was completely within the guidelines we had agreed. So up the website went. And when we got the stats a month or two later, it turned out that new website had trebled visitors and doubled income, even without the benefit of my expertise, or perhaps because it didn't have the benefit of my expertise. So think now, what can you pre-approve? Anything that you are approving is potentially getting in the way of trust and freedom and job ownership. Look at every time you need to approve something, think, why? What could I have explained to this person in advance that they didn't need to come to me for approval? And setting those guidelines is crucial, because the normal reason something gets rejected at approval is because the person the responsible for approving it hasn't made clear some of the parameters, some of the guidelines right there at the beginning.
Yeah. So it's that balance between real clarity of measures and expected outcomes in the framework, and then complete freedom within that for people to do their own best.
Exactly. We do a lot of staff surveys for companies, and people never say, let me do whatever I like. They say, give us some guidelines, give us the framework, but then give us freedom within it.
Yeah.
That's what is fair to them. That's what's fair to us as managers and leaders.
And that links us to one of the crucial areas that we often talk about in the UK, that Britain actually underperforms as far as productivity is concerned in comparison to its peers in terms of size of the economy or the type of the workforce, etc. And I know that that's a particular area of interest to you. Can you share your thoughts on what we can do to, what the causes are, but also specifically what we could do to contribute to an improvement in British productivity?
Well, that's a very big question.
Of course it is.
There's some big macro issues around paying people decent wages, which leads on to actually investment. There's issues around levels of capital investment. But let me focus on bits that I could deal with, which are how you manage people in an organisation. And there are clear links between how much freedom people have and how much autonomy they have and their productivity. There's clear links between how happy organisation, how good a workplace it is, and the success of the company. There's a guy called Alex Edmonds, who was at Wharton Business School, who did a detailed econometric survey looking at the companies that had been in the Fortune Best Place to Work list and looked at how they had fared compared to the standard stock market. In a way, in investments you could have made, you could have taken the list each year and invested in those companies. And he found that if you had a pension fund that at the end of that 25 years in the standard stock market would have been worth $100,000, if you'd invested it in the best places to work, that portfolio would have been worth $231,000.
Wow.
Because of the extra success and the extra productivity of those companies. If you're still stuck in any element of command and control, in approval, in these kind of things, you are restricting the capability and the productivity of your people. It's time to step back, set guidelines, and set your people free.
So if leaders are listening to this now and saying, actually, that I completely get that sounds really attractive, that's not how my team used to work, but as of tomorrow, I want to change that. What would be some of the specific suggestions that you would make? So introducing pre-approval presumably would be one of them. Is there anything else that you suggest people can put into practice fairly immediately to start to make this shift?
Okay, first step is pre-approval. I was at a government organisation last week where I was presenting to the senior directors, and On came 6 staff who'd read my book and had talked about how pre-approval on its own had made a quantitative difference to their work and the work of the people they work with. So first of all, pre-approval. Secondly, create a no-blame culture. I talk about celebrating mistakes. Because actually, you know, if you ask people, do you want mistakes? People tend to say, well, yeah, we don't want no mistakes. You know, we don't want nothing to be happening. I talk about the role of the manager is crucial. One of the sad facts about the British workplace is, according to a CMI survey, 49% of the British workforce would take a pay cut to be able to change their manager. Yeah?
It's quite a damning statistic.
It is quite a damning statistic. Now, we have a couple of ways of dealing with it. First of all, what should managers be doing? All the research, all the evidence points in one clear direction. They should be coaching. Your manager should be, the most effective behaviour of managers is to be a coach. I talked to a friend last week who was at a consulting organisation when they switched their entire management from a traditional model to coaching, and it transformed the organisation. So managers, first of all, do you have one-to-ones with your staff? You know, do you provide, you know, and really do it if you're going to do it on a coaching basis. Don't spend, you know, have a one-to-one every 2 weeks telling them what to do and what they've done wrong. But do you have a session with your people where you ask them what's going well, what could be better, what support they need, help them with their thinking, help them work things out? If you send a note to a member of staff saying, I want to see you at 2:30, do they look forward to it? Or do they go, oh God, what do they want to see me about? That's the kind of culture we want to create. And in fact, we have a radical idea for this. We believe, you know, say somebody comes to me and says, I love my job. I love the people I work with. I'm even happy with what I'm being paid, but I can't stand my manager. Now, most times I say that to audiences, I get a lot of nods at that point. Yeah, I've been there, say a lot of people. What happens? The person leaves. Inevitable. The person leaves. You can try and matchmake, but generally the person leaves. And it fits in with that 49% would take a pay cut. So we have a solution which takes 3 minutes. We simply ask them, who would you like to be managed by instead? We have a simple belief at Happy that people should be able to choose their managers. And instantly you get round that 49% who don't need to take a pay cut, they just need to work for someone else. You get round the biggest reason people leave companies. Yeah. People probably join your company because they want to work for it. They leave because of a manager. That's what that's the biggest factor, people leaving organisations. You can solve that. We have people leaving Happy, but nobody ever leaves because of the manager, because they can change the manager. They can choose who they like.
Mm. So how do you manage that culturally? Because I think some managers at the moment are thinking, wow, that's all kinds of scary, but actually might see the absolute benefits of that. So how do you have those conversations with managers where you say to them, look, you know, this is how we're going to do this from now on, and people get to choose you or not?
Well, the great thing is, at the moment, the only way to get promoted in most organisations is to manage people. So people who don't particularly want to manage people, whose skill isn't managing people, have to manage people. This is madness. Let's come back to getting people to do what they're good at. Some people aren't good at managing people, and however much you train them, are not going to be good at managing people. Let me give you an example of a company we worked with, had a marketing director who was brilliant at marketing, but actually not so good managing people. She lost half the department each year. The company came to us and said, look, we have to keep this person. Her ideas are crucial, but we can't afford to keep losing so many people. Help us. Now, I'm sure everyone listening can probably think up what the solution to that was, which was simply to put that person in a role which didn't involve managing people, just involved doing marketing all the time. Found someone in the team who was good with people, put them in charge of being manager of the team. And guess who was happiest with that solution?
The previous manager.
The previous marketing director was delighted because she got to do what she was great at all the time, rather than the stuff she knew she wasn't so good at and stressed her out. So as long as it is not shown as a demotion, The key is to have two tracks of management. Let me give you an example of a company we worked with called Cougar, their software development company. We were asked to do a day on training the new project leads in managing people. And at the end of the day, 3 or 4 of them came to us and said, look, this great day, we love what you've been talking about, but we've realized this isn't what we want to do. And we're going to go back and tell the managing director that actually we don't want to manage people. Well, I thought, cool, the managing director is the guy who booked this course and got us to, what's he going to say? Actually, he was delighted. He'd always realised these weren't natural people managers, but hadn't been able to address it. So instead, they went away and created a judo belt system whereby you've got, I can't remember the order, but blue belt, green belt, brown belt, black belt, without managing anybody, you just got awarded a belt for your coding skills. Yeah. Now, you can imagine joining that company and seeing, well, there's 2 tracks here. I could become a manager of people, or I could become a black belt coder. What they did was they'd established that it was as credible, potentially even more credible, to be a technical expert as to be a manager of people. And that's the single biggest thing we find frees up organizations, because it gets people out of managing people who aren't any good at managing people, and gets them to do what they're great at. Everyone gains.
Yeah. I'm a great proponent of the 2-track promotion system because it's just it's so obvious, but actually it's so rare. And as you said in the start of when you were talking about this, it is so common that the only way up is through managing more and more people and more bigger and bigger budgets. And there's lots of people who just don't want to do either of those things, but who do have the technical expertise that should be rewarded with increased autonomy and increased pay. So
and some of the most successful companies on the planet use 2-track systems.
Of course.
Places like Google, places like IBM, even BT. You can become a technical expert. And if you look around, if you're in a sizable company, if you look around, I'm sure you can see people who would be much better off sticking to their core skills and not managing people.
Indeed. And I think at the moment it's more common in technology companies because we all kind of buy into that almost stereotypical assumption that people who are highly technically skilled, we expect them to be less good as people managers. But actually, as you said, in terms of marketing, the same thing applies across the piece. And we have people who are great at strategy. We have people who are great at as say marketers, but not necessarily good as people managers. So
exactly.
The more organizations pick this up, the better, really.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So is there anything else that you would want to share with emerging or established leaders? So you've talked about pre-approval. You've talked about allowing people to choose their managers and allowing people who aren't very good at people management just not to manage. Anything else in particular?
I'll sum it up in a moment, but I encourage you to read the Happy Manifesto, available from Amazon and all good bookstores. Contact me at henry@happy.co.uk. I'd be delighted to talk. But let me sum it up in 3 points. Number 1, get people to do what they're good at. A radical idea, but slightly obviously makes sense. Number 2, give them the trust and freedom to do it well. And 3, make them happy and support them with coaching. That's it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Henry. Lots to put into practice.
Okay, thank you.